Alien orphan left on the roadside by her cruel stepmother, and then a poor but big-hearted human. The scorching twin stars beat down on the dusty road, stretching between the alien settlement and nowhere. A small figure stood alone, her soft blue skin shimmering with tears that caught the harsh light. Amira clutched her worn plush toy, a faded blue creature with one eye missing and stuffing poking through several seams against her chest as if it might shield her from abandonment. "It's just us now, Blip," she whispered to the toy, her large ocean-colored eyes scanning the empty horizon. The hovering vehicle that had brought her here was long gone, leaving only a trail of dust that had settled on her bare feet. Her stepmother's final words still rang in her ears. "Your father's gone. You're not my problem anymore." Then the woman had practically thrown her from the vehicle, tossed the stuffed toy after her, and sped away toward the gleaming spires of Viridia City without a backward glance. Amira's light pink dress, faded from too many washes and too little care, fluttered around her knees in the hot breeze. The little buttons down the front were mismatched replacements, evidence of her stepmother's begrudging maintenance. She had nothing else, no water, no food, not even shoes. "Maybe she'll come back," Amira told Blip, though she didn't believe it. Her stepmother Nalara had never wanted her. With her father gone, there was nothing keeping the woman tethered to her unwanted stepchild. The road stretched endlessly in both directions. Amira had no idea which way to go. The settlement behind her offered no sanctuary. Everyone there knew Nalara, and no one had ever intervened when the woman's cruelty became evident. Ahead lay unknown territory, equally uninviting. So she stood, paralyzed by indecision and grief, as the hours passed and the heat intensified. "Dad would know what to do," she murmured, fresh tears welling. Her father had been her shield, her comfort, her everything. Until the mining accident 3 weeks ago, now she had nothing but Blip and the clothes on her back. When she heard the sound of footsteps crunching on the dusty road, Amira tensed. She'd been taught to fear strangers, especially humans. The alien settlement where she'd lived tolerated the human miners, but integration was minimal. Humans were considered crude, unpredictable, and potentially dangerous. The approaching figure was unmistakably human, tall, broad-shouldered, and walking with the distinctive gait of someone who'd spent long hours in the low-ceiling tunnels of the mines. His skin was tanned and weathered, his thick chestnut hair matted with sweat and dust. His hands were large, calloused, and marked with the telltale blue stains of ore extraction. Amira clutched Blip tighter and took a step backward. The man slowed as he spotted her, his brow furrowing. He looked around, clearly searching for an adult who might be responsible for the child standing alone on this desolate stretch of road. "Hey there!" he called, his voice gentler than Amira had expected. "You okay, little one?" Amira didn't respond. She'd been taught that humans couldn't be trusted. He approached slowly, keeping a respectful distance. "My name's Eli," he said, crouching down to appear less intimidating. "I work in the mines just over that ridge. Are you lost?" Amira shook her head. "Waiting for someone then?" Another head shake. Eli's expression darkened. "You're not out here all by yourself, are you?" Amira's silence was answer enough. "Where are your folks?" he asked, his voice taking on an edge of concern. "My dad's dead," Amira finally whispered. "And my stepmother? She left me here." Eli's face transformed with shock, then anger, then a deep sadness that seemed to age him. "She just left you? Out here?" Amira nodded, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "How long ago?" "When the first sun was there," she pointed to a spot in the sky where the larger of the binary stars had been hours earlier. "Damn," Eli muttered under his breath. "You've been out in this heat all day? No water?" Amira shook her head again. Eli immediately unslung a canteen from his belt. "Here," he said, offering it to her. "Small sips, okay? Too much at once will make you sick." Amira hesitated, then took the canteen with trembling hands. The water was lukewarm but felt like salvation on her parched throat. "What's your name?" Eli asked as she drank. "Amira," she replied after lowering the canteen. "And who's your friend?" He nodded at the stuffed toy. "This is Blip," she said, her voice gaining a touch of confidence. "He's all I have left." Something in Eli's expression shifted, a flash of recognition, of shared pain. I know what that's like, he said quietly, to lose everything. He looked down the road in both directions, then back at Amira. Listen, I can't leave you out here. Night's coming, and it gets cold, not to mention the predators that come out after dark. Amira's eyes widened with fear. I've got a small place not far from here, Eli continued. It's not much, but there's food and water and a safe place to sleep. Would you come with me, just for tonight? Tomorrow we can figure out what to do. Amira clutched Blip tighter. My stepmother said humans are dangerous. A sad smile crossed Eli's face. Some are. Just like some of your people are dangerous, like the one who left you here to die. The truth of his words hit Amira hard. Her stepmother had abandoned her to a fate worse than anything this human might do. I promise I won't hurt you, Eli said, extending his hand. You and Blip will be safe with me. Amira looked at his outstretched hand. Rough, calloused, stained blue from the mines, but somehow radiating safety. She thought of her father's hands, so different in appearance, but similar in the security they offered. Okay, she whispered, placing her tiny blue hand in his massive human one. Eli smiled, and in that moment, Amira felt the first flicker of hope she'd experienced since her father's death. Can you walk a bit more, or are you too tired? He asked. I can walk, Amira said, though her legs felt wobbly. Eli nodded, but after a few minutes of watching her struggle, he stopped. How about a ride instead, he offered, gesturing to his shoulders. Amira hesitated, then nodded. Eli lifted her with gentle ease, settling her on his broad shoulders. From this new vantage point, the world seemed less threatening. Hold on tight, he said, and began walking toward what Amira hoped might be safety. Eli's dwelling sat on the outskirts of the settlement, a modest structure of corrugated metal and salvaged materials. It wasn't much, just one main room with a small kitchen area, a curtained-off sleeping space, and a tiny washroom. But it was clean and well-maintained. Home sweet home, Eli said as he ducked through the low doorway, Amira still perched on his shoulders. He carefully lifted her down, setting her gently on her feet. It's not fancy, but it's safe. Amira clutched Blip tightly as she took in her surroundings. The interior was sparse but tidy. A few personal touches, a handmade quilt on the bed, a shelf of real paper books, a small potted plant struggling toward a light fixture, gave the place a sense of care despite its poverty. Are you hungry? Eli asked, moving to the kitchen area. Amira nodded, suddenly aware of the hollow feeling in her stomach. I don't have much that's... Well, I'm not sure what your people eat, Eli admitted, opening a small cooling unit. I've got some protein bars, some fruit, and... Fruit, please, Amira said quietly. If that's okay. Eli smiled, relieved. Fruit it is. He placed a selection of colorful items on a chipped plate and set it before her at his small table. Water? Or I've got some juice. Water, please. As Amira ate, Eli busied himself preparing his own meal, occasionally glancing at the small blue girl who sat so primly at his table, carefully eating one piece of fruit at a time. So, he said finally, sitting across from her with his own plate, we need to figure out what to do next. Amira looked up, fear flashing in her ocean-colored eyes. Are you going to take me back? Back where? To your stepmother? She nodded, clutching Blip closer. Absolutely not, Eli said firmly. That woman abandoned you. She doesn't deserve to have you back. Relief washed over Amira's face, but it was quickly replaced by uncertainty. Then where will I go? Eli ran a hand through his dusty hair. Well, there must be someone in your community who'd take you in. A relative, a friend of your father's? Amira shook her head. My father was from another settlement. He moved here when he married my stepmother. I don't know anyone else. What about official channels? There must be some kind of alien? I mean, your people's equivalent of Child Protective Services? The Guardianship Authority, Amira supplied, but they just put me in the group home until someone wanted me. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Nobody wants blue children. We're considered unlucky. Eli's brow furrowed. That's ridiculous. Your skin color doesn't determine your worth. It does to them, Amira said, with the simple acceptance of a child who had long lived with prejudice. Eli studied her for a long moment. The thought of sending this vulnerable child to an institution where she'd be treated as unwanted made his stomach turn. But what were his alternatives? He was a human, a poor miner at that, living on the fringes of alien society. What did he know about raising a child, especially one from another species? "You could stay here," he found himself saying, surprising them both. "Just until we figure something out." Amira's eyes widened. "Really?" "Really," Eli confirmed, his resolve strengthening. "It's not much, but you'd be safe." A tentative smile, the first he'd seen, brightened Amira's face. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet," Eli warned. "I have no idea what I'm doing. And there might be complications." "What kind of complications?" Eli sighed. "Your people don't exactly welcome humans with open arms. There are laws about interspecies guardianship, specifically laws against it." "But why?" "Fear, mostly. Difference." Eli shrugged. "Humans haven't been on this planet long. We came for the mining jobs, but we're still seen as outsiders. Dangerous ones." "You don't seem dangerous," Amira observed. Eli laughed. "Well, I'm glad you think so." After dinner, Eli set up a makeshift bed for Amira, using spare blankets and his one extra pillow. He showed her how to use the washroom facilities, found an old shirt of his she could use as a nightgown, and even managed to wash her dusty dress so it would be clean for the morning. As he tucked her in, Amira looked up at him with those enormous eyes. "Why are you helping me?" Eli paused, considering his answer carefully. "Because it's the right thing to do," he said finally, "and because I know what it's like to be alone." "What happened to your family?" Amira asked, clutching Blip to her chest. A shadow passed over Eli's face. "Transport accident. 5 years ago. My wife and daughter were traveling to visit her parents when their shuttle malfunctioned." "I'm sorry," Amira whispered. "Me too, kid. Me too." Eli gently ruffled her silky hair. "Get some sleep now. Things will look better in the morning." But things didn't look better in the morning. They looked considerably worse. Eli was awakened by a sharp pounding on his door. He jumped up, quickly pulling on a shirt, and motioned for Amira to stay quiet and hidden behind the curtain that separated his sleeping area. When he opened the door, he found himself facing 2 uniformed officers from the Alien Settlement Security Force. "Human resident Eli Voss?" the taller one asked, consulting a datapad. "That's me," Eli confirmed, trying to keep his expression neutral. "We've received a report of an unauthorized alien miner in your dwelling. We're here to investigate this violation of Interspecies Guardianship Code 47B." Eli's heart sank. Someone must have seen him bringing Amira home yesterday. "There must be some mistake," he began. "Step aside, human," the second officer ordered. "Obstruction will only compound your violation." Eli stood his ground. "Do you have a warrant?" The officers exchanged glances, clearly surprised by the question. "We don't need one for code violations involving minors," the first one stated, though he sounded less certain. "Actually, you do," Eli countered, thanking the stars for the legal training modules all minors were required to complete. Section 12 of the Colonial Rights Agreement specifically states that domicile searches require judicial approval, regardless of species. The officers looked annoyed but not defeated. "We'll be back, human," the taller one warned, "with the proper documentation. In the meantime, if you are harboring an alien child, I strongly suggest you turn her over to the proper authorities before you face serious consequences." As they turned to leave, the second officer added, "The penalties for humans violating guardianship laws are severe. You could lose your work permit, your residence permit, everything." Eli closed the door and leaned against it, his heart racing. When he turned around, Amira was standing there, tears streaming down her face. "They're going to take me away," she whispered. Eli knelt down to her level. "No, they're not," he said with more confidence than he felt. "But we need to figure this out. Fast." "We need to get you somewhere safe," Eli said, hastily packing a small bag with essentials. "Those officers will be back with a warrant, and when they find you here..." Amira hugged Blip tighter. "Where will we go?" Eli paused, realizing he had no answer. The human quarter offered no sanctuary. The authorities would search there first, and he knew no one in the alien community who would risk harboring them. "I don't know yet," he admitted, "but we need to move. Now." They slipped out the back door, Amira wearing Eli's old shirt as a makeshift cloak to hide her distinctive blue skin. The morning market was just opening, providing enough bustle to blend in as they navigated the narrow streets between the human quarter and the main settlement. "Keep your head down, hon," Eli murmured, guiding her with a gentle hand on her shoulder. "We just need to, Excuse me," a melodic voice interrupted. "You dropped this." Eli turned to find himself face to face with the most striking alien woman he'd ever seen. Tall and willowy, with iridescent lavender skin that caught the morning light like polished pearl, she held out a small ration card that had indeed fallen from his hastily packed bag. "Thanks," he said gruffly, taking the card and turning to leave. "Your daughter seems unwell," the woman observed, her silver eyes flicking meaningfully to Amira's poorly concealed form. "Perhaps she needs medical attention?" Eli tensed, ready to run, but something in the woman's expression made him hesitate. She wasn't looking at them with suspicion or judgment, but with concern. "We're fine," he said cautiously. The woman glanced around, then leaned closer. "Security officers are searching the market," she whispered, "looking for a human man with a blue alien child. I suggest you follow me, quickly." Before Eli could respond, she turned and walked briskly toward a side street. He hesitated, every instinct screaming that this could be a trap. "Do we trust her?" Amira whispered. "I don't know," Eli admitted, "but we're running out of options." Decision made, he took Amira's hand and followed the mysterious woman through a maze of increasingly upscale streets until they reached an elegant building near the settlement's administrative center. She ushered them through a private entrance and into a spacious apartment decorated with tasteful alien artifacts and surprisingly human-friendly furniture. "You should be safe here for now," she said, securing the door behind them. "I'm Lydria, by the way, Lydria Nethvarin." Eli's eyes widened in recognition. "Nethvarin? As in council member Nethvarin?" Lydria smiled, revealing delicately pointed teeth. "My father. I'm the Deputy Director of Interspecies Relations." "And you're helping us break interspecies relations laws?" Eli asked incredulously. "I'm helping you navigate an unjust system," she corrected, her silver eyes flashing. "There's a difference." She knelt down to Amira's level. "Hello, little one. What's your name?" Amira peeked out from behind Eli's leg. "Amira," she whispered. "And who's your friend?" Lydria nodded toward the stuffed toy. "Blip," Amira said, her voice gaining a touch of confidence. "Eli saved us." Lydria's gaze traveled up to meet Eli's, something warm and approving in her expression. "Did he now?" "That was very brave." "It wasn't brave," Eli said gruffly. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," Lydria said, rising to her full height, still a few inches shorter than Eli. "They wouldn't have. Especially not a human, considering the penalties." She moved to a sleek kitchen area and began preparing a hot beverage. The guardianship laws were enacted during the early days of human settlement, when tensions were high and trust was low. They're outdated and harmful, but deeply entrenched in our legal system. "So why help us?" Eli asked, accepting the steaming cup she offered. Lydria's expression softened. "Because I've been working to reform those laws for years. Because what happened to this child," she nodded toward Amira, "is a failure of our system, and because not all of us share the prejudices of our ancestors." She handed Amira a sweet-smelling drink that the girl cautiously sipped, her eyes widening with pleasure at the taste. "I've been building a coalition to reform the interspecies guardianship code," Lydria continued. "We've made progress, but it's slow work. Your situation could actually help our cause, a concrete example of why these laws need changing." "We're not looking to be poster children for a political movement," Eli said warily. "We just need to keep Amira safe." "And I can help with that," Lydria assured him, "but I need to know the full story." Over the next hour, Eli explained everything, finding Amira abandoned on the road, learning about her stepmother's cruelty, and their brief night of safety before the authorities came knocking. Lydria listened intently, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "The abandonment of a child is a serious crime in our culture," she finally said. "Even more serious than a human harboring an alien minor. If we can prove what the stepmother did..." "We can't," Eli sighed. "It's her word against Amira's. And in this society, who do you think they'll believe?" "Perhaps," Lydria mused, "but there are ways to strengthen your position." She studied Eli with those piercing silver eyes. "You genuinely care for this child, don't you?" "I do," Eli admitted. I know it's crazy. I've only known her a day. But sometimes connections form quickly," Lydria finished for him, a strange intensity in her gaze. "Especially between souls who recognize something in each other." The air between them seemed to thicken with unspoken understanding. Eli found himself noticing details he'd missed before. The graceful curve of her neck, the subtle floral scent that surrounded her, the way her lavender skin seemed to pulse with inner light when she spoke passionately. Lydria cleared her throat, breaking the moment. "I have a proposal," she said. "A way to protect Amira and potentially change our laws for the better, but it's not without risk." "I'm listening," Eli said. "We petition for temporary emergency guardianship," Lydria explained, "based on the abandonment and the child's expressed preference. It won't be easy. We'll face resistance from traditionalists, possibly even threats. But with my position and connections, why would you put yourself at risk for us?" Eli asked. Lydria's gaze dropped to Amira, who had fallen asleep on the couch clutching Blip. "Because it's the right thing to do," she said, echoing Eli's own words from the night before. Then she looked back at him, a hint of mischief in her silver eyes. "And because I find humans fascinating, particularly ones who risk everything to save abandoned children." The warmth in her voice sent an unexpected thrill through Eli's body. For the first time since losing his family, he felt a spark of something he'd thought long dead. "So," Lydria said, extending her hand. "Partners?" Eli took her hand, noting how her cool, smooth skin contrasted with his rough, warm palm. "Partners." The next 3 days passed in a whirlwind of preparation. Lydria's apartment became their sanctuary as she worked tirelessly to arrange an emergency guardianship hearing. Amira slowly emerged from her shell, enchanted by Lydria's collection of alien artifacts and the panoramic view of the settlement from the balcony. Eli found himself equally enchanted, not by the luxurious surroundings but by their lavender-skinned host. Each evening after Amira had gone to sleep in the guest bedroom, he and Lydria would talk late into the night, sharing stories of their vastly different lives. "I still don't understand why you're risking so much for us," Elias said on the third night, as they sat on her balcony sharing a bottle of something that wasn't quite wine, but had similar effects. Lydria's silver eyes reflected the settlement lights below. "My mother was like Amira, born with blue skin. In our culture, it's seen as a mark of misfortune." She traced the rim of her glass. "She faced discrimination her entire life, even after marrying my father. When she died, he dedicated himself to fighting prejudice in our laws. I'm continuing that work." "And what does your father think about you harboring fugitives?" Eli asked. A mischievous smile played across Lydria's lips. "He thinks it's about time I showed some initiative." Their laughter mingled in the night air, and Eli found himself leaning closer, drawn to her exotic beauty and sharp intelligence. When their hands brushed as they reached for the bottle, an electric current seemed to pass between them. "There's something I should tell you," Lydria said, her voice dropping to an intimate whisper. "In my culture, relationships between our species are uncommon, but not forbidden. However, they do attract attention." "Is that your way of warning me off?" Eli asked, his heart pounding. "Quite the opposite," she replied, her silver eyes darkening with desire. "It's my way of saying that if you're interested, we should be discreet." The tension between them had been building for days. Stolen glances, lingering touches, conversations that danced around their mutual attraction. Now, under the alien stars, it crystallized into something undeniable. Eli reached out, gently tracing the delicate markings that swirled across her cheekbone. "I'm definitely interested," he murmured. What followed was a night of discovery, of alien and human anatomies finding surprising compatibility, of cultural differences melting away in the heat of passion, of two souls connecting across the vast gulf of their different origins. Their coming together was both tender and fierce, a celebration of life amidst the uncertainty they faced. Afterward, lying in the soft glow of Lydria's bioluminescent bedroom, Eli felt more alive than he had in years. "That was unexpected," Lydria suggested, her lavender skin flushed with a pearlescent sheen. "Wonderful," Eli corrected, pulling her closer. She nestled against him, her body temperature cooler than a human's, but warming wherever they touched. "Humans are fascinating," she murmured. "So warm, so intense. Your people feel everything so deeply. Is that unusual for your species?" "We tend to be more measured," she explained, "controlled. It's considered proper to maintain emotional distance. Even during—" He gestured between them. Lydria laughed softly. "Especially then. Traditional couples maintain eye contact but otherwise remain quite composed. The goal is mutual satisfaction without losing oneself to passion." "That sounds efficient," Eli said diplomatically. "It is," she agreed, tracing patterns on his chest. "But efficiency isn't everything. Your human way is liberating." Their peaceful moment was shattered by the chime of Lydria's communication device. She reluctantly disentangled herself and checked the message, her expression instantly shifting to concern. "What is it?" Eli asked, sitting up. "The hearing has been moved up to tomorrow morning." She began pulling on her clothes. "And there's more. Amira's stepmother has filed a counter-petition claiming she never abandoned the child, that Amira was kidnapped by a human minor." "That's ridiculous," Eli exclaimed. "She left her on a deserted road to die." "I believe you," Lydria said, her voice tight with anger. "But Nylara Teth has powerful connections. Her new mate is Counselor Dreth, head of the Traditional Values Coalition and my father's chief political rival." "So this is political now," Eli said grimly, reaching for his own clothes. "It always was," Lydria replied. "But now it's personal too. Dreth has been trying to discredit my father's reform efforts for years. Using Amira as a pawn would be exactly his style." She paced the room, her earlier languid contentment replaced by focused intensity. "We need to prepare. The hearing will be hostile. Dreth will stack the tribunal with his supporters. We need evidence, witnesses, anything to counter Nylara's claims." "There weren't any witnesses," Eli said, frustration building. "It was just Amira, alone on that road." Lydria paused, a calculating look in her silver eyes. Perhaps not at the abandonment itself, but someone must have seen something. The neighbors, perhaps? Someone who might have noticed Nylara leaving with Amira and returning without her. "It's worth trying," Eli agreed. "But how do we find them?" "I don't even know where they lived." "I can access the residence records," Lydria said, "and I have contacts who can make discreet inquiries tonight." She moved to leave the bedroom, then turned back, her professional demeanor softening. "Eli, what happened between us was amazing," he finished for her, "and something I hope happens again. But right now, Amira comes first." Relief and affection washed over Lydria's face. "Exactly." She leaned in for a quick, fierce kiss. "This is why humans continue to surprise me. Your capacity for selfless love is remarkable." They spent the rest of the night preparing for the hearing, Lydria making calls and pulling strings, Eli working with Amira to ensure she could tell her story clearly and confidently. The girl was terrified at the prospect of seeing her stepmother again, but showed unexpected resilience. "Will I have to go back with her?" Amira asked, clutching Blip tightly. "Not if I have anything to say about it," Eli promised, though his stomach churned with uncertainty. As dawn broke, Lydria received a message that made her eyes widen. "My contacts came through," she said. "They found a maintenance worker who was repairing a conduit near Nylara's residence the day Amira disappeared. He saw them leave together and Nylara return alone, and he's willing to testify." Hope flared in Eli's chest, but Lydria's expression remained guarded. "It's a start," she said, "but Dreth's influence runs deep. The hearing will still be an uphill battle." She knelt before Amira, straightening the new dress she'd procured for the child. "Remember what we practiced, little one. Tell the truth, exactly as it happened. Can you do that? Amira nodded solemnly. For Eli, she said, and for you. Lidria's eyes softened. For all of us, she corrected, pressing her forehead gently against Amira's, and a traditional gesture of solidarity. As they prepared to leave for the tribunal, Eli pulled Lidria aside. Whatever happens in there, he said quietly, thank you for everything. She squeezed his hand. Save your thanks for when we win, she replied, a fierce determination in her silver eyes. This is just the beginning. The Administrative Justice Center loomed before them, its polished stone facade gleaming in the morning light. Eli felt distinctly out of place in the formal attire Lidria had procured for him. The first suit he'd worn since his wedding day. Beside him, Amira clutched both Blip and his hand, her ocean-colored eyes wide with apprehension. Remember, Lidria murmured as they approached the entrance, keep your responses respectful but firm. Don't let them provoke you into anger. Easier said than done, Eli replied, spotting the security officers who had come to his home days earlier. They watched his approach with undisguised contempt. Before they could reach the main doors, a tall, imposing alien male stepped into their path. His skin was a deep indigo, almost black in the shadows, and he wore the elaborate robes of a high counselor. The crowd of officials and petitioners parted around him like water around a stone. Counselor Dreth, Lidria acknowledged with a formal bow that contained not an ounce of genuine respect. Deputy Director Neth Varen, he replied, his voice a cultured rumble. This is quite beneath your station, isn't it? Personally escorting criminals to their hearing? Mr. Voss has been charged with no crime, Lidria countered smoothly. And as interspecies relations is my department, this case falls squarely within my purview. Dreth's gaze shifted to Eli, studying him with the detached interest one might show an insect. The human mining contingent has been a necessary evil for our economy, he said. But this, he gestured toward Amira, who shrank behind Eli's leg, crosses the line, taking one of our children? The council will not stand for such presumption. Eli felt his temper rising, but remembered Lidria's warning. I found an abandoned child and offered her shelter, he said evenly. Where I come from, that's called basic decency. Where you come from is precisely the problem, Dreth replied. Your human notions have no place in our legal system. He turned his attention to Amira, his expression softening into something that might have seemed grandfatherly if not for the calculation in his eyes. Child, your mother has been so worried about you. She's waiting inside to take you home where you belong. Amira's grip on Eli's hand tightened painfully. She's not my mother, the girl whispered, and she left me to die. A flash of annoyance crossed Dreth's features before his political mask slipped back into place. Children often misunderstand adult actions, he said dismissively. The tribunal will sort this out. He turned to leave, but paused to address Lidria once more. Your father's reform agenda dies today, he said quietly. This case will demonstrate exactly why humans cannot be trusted with our children. I suggest you distance yourself before you're caught in the fallout. As Dreth strode away, Lidria's composed facade cracked slightly, revealing a glimpse of genuine worry. He seems confident, Eli observed. He is, Lidria confirmed, which means he has something planned beyond what we know. They entered the hearing chamber to find it already crowded. At the front sat 3 tribunal judges, all older aliens with the distinctive silver markings of the judicial caste. To one side sat Nylara Teth, Amira's stepmother, a slender alien woman with pale green skin who projected an aura of wounded dignity. When Amira spotted her, the child froze in terror. I can't, she whispered. Eli knelt down to her level. Yes, you can, he said firmly. You're braver than you know, and Lidria and I will be right beside you the whole time. Promise? Promise. The hearing began with formal declarations and procedural matters that Eli barely followed. Then Nilara's advocate presented her version of events, a tearful account of how her beloved stepdaughter had wandered off while Nilara was distracted by grief over her husband's death, and how a human miner had taken advantage of the situation to abduct the child. My client has been devastated, the advocate concluded. She only wants her daughter back where she belongs, with her own kind. When it was their turn, Lydria presented a masterful case, citing legal precedents and calling their witness, the maintenance worker who testified to seeing Nylara return home alone after deliberately taking Amira away. She was smiling, the worker added. Seemed happy, like she just solved a problem. Nylara's advocate tried to discredit him, suggesting he was paid for his testimony, but the worker held firm. Then came Amira's testimony. The child stood before the tribunal, clutching Blip for courage, and told her story in a clear, unwavering voice. How her stepmother had always been cold to her. How after her father died, Nylara had driven her far from home, pushed her out of the vehicle, and told her she was no longer her problem. She said blue children bring bad luck, Amira concluded. That's why my daddy died. A murmur ran through the chamber. Even one of the tribunal judges looked disturbed. Nylara leapt to her feet. The child is lying. Everyone knows blue-skinned children are prone to fantasies and deception. It's in their nature. Objection, Lydria called out. These bigoted superstitions have no place in these proceedings. The lead judge nodded. Sustained. Mrs. Teth, control yourself or you will be removed. When Eli's turn came to testify, he spoke simply and from the heart, describing finding Amira alone on the road, her fear, her hunger, and his decision to help her. I lost my own daughter 5 years ago, he said. I couldn't save her, but I could save Amira. That's all I was trying to do. The chamber grew quiet at his words. Even some of the aliens who had been openly hostile seemed moved. As the hearing progressed, Eli began to feel a cautious optimism. Their case was strong, Lydria was brilliant, and the truth was on their side. Then Counselor Dreth entered the chamber and whispered something to Nylara's advocate, who immediately requested permission to present new evidence. We have obtained security footage, the advocate announced, that proves Mrs. Teth's account and reveals the human's deception. Lydria tensed beside Eli. This is what he was planning, she whispered. But how could they have footage? There are no security cameras on that stretch of road. The advocate activated a projection showing what appeared to be Nylara's vehicle stopping on a road. The timestamp matched the day Amira was abandoned. In the footage, a small figure, presumably Amira, exited the vehicle and appeared to wander off on her own. Later, the footage showed Eli approaching the child and leading her away. As you can see, the advocate said triumphantly, the child left the vehicle of her own accord while her mother was distracted by grief. The human then took advantage of the situation. Lydria was on her feet instantly. I request authentication of this footage. The timestamp and location can easily be falsified. Are you accusing a respected counselor of evidence tampering? One judge asked sharply. I'm requesting standard verification, Lydria replied coolly. Unless there is some reason that basic procedure should be waived. The judges conferred briefly, then agreed to a short recess while the footage was authenticated. In a private consultation room, Lydria paced furiously. The footage is fake, she said. It has to be. But proving it will be difficult if Dreth has the verification officials in his pocket. What do we do? Eli asked, holding a trembling Amira on his lap. Lydria's silver eyes flashed with determination. We fight fire with fire. I need to make a call. She stepped outside, returning minutes later with renewed purpose. My father is on his way, she said, and he's bringing his own expert. One even Dreth can't intimidate. Will that be enough? Eli asked. Lydria moved closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. The touch sent warmth cascading through him, reminding him of their night together. The unexpected tenderness, the passionate connection that had left them both breathless with wonder. It has to be, she said softly. For all our sakes. Her eyes held his, conveying not just determination but something deeper, a promise of what might be possible if they survived this ordeal. Eli found himself drawing strength from that promise, from the memory of her lavender, skin against his, from the way she'd whispered his name in the darkness. Whatever happens, he said quietly, last night wasn't just… I know, she interrupted, a smile softening her features. For me too. The moment was broken by a commotion outside. The door burst open, revealing Counselor Dreth flanked by security officers. This hearing is over, he announced. The tribunal has reviewed the evidence and made its decision. The child will be returned to her legal guardian immediately. That's impossible, Lydria protested. The authentication process has been expedited, Dreth cut her off smoothly. The footage was verified as authentic. Officers, take the child. As the security officers moved forward, Eli stood, placing Amira behind him. No, he said simply. This is your final warning, human, Dreth said. Interfere with settlement authorities and you'll be deported, or worse. Eli didn't budge. I said no. The tension in the consultation room was thick enough to cut. Eli stood like a wall between Amira and the security officers, his stance unwavering despite the threat of deportation, or worse. Behind him, Amira trembled but found her voice. He killed my father, she cried out, her small voice piercing the standoff. Everyone froze. Dreth's face contorted with shock before settling into a practiced mask of concern. The child is clearly disturbed, he said smoothly. Another reason she should be returned to proper care immediately. No! Amira stepped out from behind Eli, clutching Blip to her chest but standing tall. I heard you and my stepmother talking. The night before my daddy died, you said the mine inspection would be? Taken care of, Lydria finished, her silver eyes widening with understanding. You sabotaged the safety inspection. Dreth's expression hardened. This is absurd. The ravings of a blue-skinned child and the desperate ploys of a human who's overstepped his bounds. Officers, remove them all. Wait! A commanding voice rang out from the doorway. Everyone turned to see an imposing alien male with the same lavender skin as Lydria, though weathered with age. Beside him stood a smaller, nervous-looking alien, clutching a data pad. Father, Lydria breathed, relief evident in her voice. Counselor Nethvarin entered the room with the quiet authority of someone accustomed to being heard. I believe, he said, that we should return to the tribunal chamber. There are matters that require the attention of all judges. This hearing is concluded, Dreth snapped. The tribunal has made its decision. Has it? Nethvarin raised an eyebrow. Because I've just spoken with Chief Judge Marath, and she seems quite surprised to hear that a ruling was issued without her final approval, particularly given that the authentication of your evidence is still in progress. Dreth's confidence faltered visibly. A procedural misunderstanding. Indeed. Nethvarin's tone made it clear he didn't believe that for a moment. One that will be rectified immediately, shall we? With no graceful way to refuse, Dreth was forced to lead the procession back to the tribunal chamber, where the three judges waited with expressions ranging from confusion to outright anger. Counselor Dreth, the chief judge said coldly, perhaps you can explain why security officers were dispatched to enforce a ruling we had not yet made. Before Dreth could respond, Nethvarin stepped forward. Honored judges, I believe I can shed some light on the situation. This is Technician Prell from the Central Security Archive. He has some information about the footage presented earlier. The nervous technician stepped forward, activating his data pad. The footage shows signs of tampering, he explained, projecting a detailed analysis. The timestamp was altered and the visual data has been spliced from multiple sources. It's sophisticated work, but unmistakably falsified. A murmur ran through the chamber. Dreth's face darkened with fury. Furthermore, Nethvarin continued, the child has made a serious accusation that warrants investigation. She claims to have overheard Counselor Dreth and Mrs. Teth discussing the mine safety inspection prior to her father's death. All eyes turned to Amira, who stood between Eli and Lydria, still clutching her stuffed toy. Can you tell us what you heard, child? The chief judge asked gently. Amira nodded, her ocean-colored eyes solemn. My stepmother brought him to our house late at night. They didn't know I was awake. He said the mine inspection would be taken care of, and that after my daddy was gone, she could be with him openly. Lies, Nilara shouted, rising from her seat. The blue-skinned brat has always been a liar. Actually, Lydria interjected, I took the liberty of requesting the mine inspection records from that period. She produced a data crystal. The inspector who signed off on the section where Amira's father died was recently promoted to a position directly under Counselor Dreth's authority, a position that normally requires years more experience than he possessed. The chief judge accepted the crystal, reviewing its contents with a deepening frown. These are serious allegations that will require a full investigation. She turned to Dreth. Counselor, you will remain available to the tribunal during this process. Dreth's composed facade finally cracked. This is a coordinated attack on my reputation. The word of a defective blue child against a senior counselor? The human has obviously coached her. I didn't need coaching, Amira said quietly. I remember everything about that night. I remember because it was the last time I saw my daddy alive. Something in her simple statement silenced the chamber. Even those who had been skeptical seemed moved by the child's quiet dignity in the face of such powerful opposition. The chief judge conferred briefly with her colleagues, then addressed the room. In light of these developments, the tribunal will adjourn to consider both the guardianship petition and the new allegations. All parties will remain available. As the judges filed out, Eli knelt beside Amira. Why didn't you tell us about this before? I was scared, she whispered, and I wasn't sure if it was real or a bad dream. But when I saw him again, she glanced fearfully at Dreth, who was being quietly detained by security officers. You were incredibly brave, Eli told her, pulling her into a gentle hug. Across the chamber, Nylara was being similarly detained, her earlier composure completely shattered as she hurled accusations at everyone around her. Lidria and her father approached, the elder Neth Varen studying Eli with undisguised curiosity. So you're the human who's caused such an uproar, he said, his tone impossible to read. Father, Lidria warned. To their surprise, Neth Varen smiled. Our people could learn much from your kind's protective instincts. That was quite a stand you took back there. I wasn't going to let them take her, Eli said simply. So I observed. The counselor's gaze shifted to his daughter, noting something in her expression that made his smile deepen. Lidria has always had excellent judgment about character. I see this case as no exception. The hours that followed were a blur of statements, evidence reviews, and tense waiting. Eli, Lidria, and Amira were provided a private room where they could rest and eat. As night fell outside, Amira finally succumbed to exhaustion, falling asleep on a small couch with Blip tucked under her arm. Eli and Lidria sat close together, their hands intertwined, drawing comfort from each other's presence. The stress of the day had stripped away pretenses, leaving only the raw connection they discovered in each other's arms the night before. Whatever happens, Isai said quietly, I want you to know these past few days have meant everything to me. You've meant everything. Lidria's silver eyes shimmered in the dim light. Humans feel so deeply, so quickly, she marveled, tracing the line of his jaw with her free hand. It's terrifying and exhilarating all at once. Too fast? He asked, suddenly uncertain. No, she whispered, leaning in until her cool breath mingled with his. Perfect. Their kiss was gentle at first, then hungry with the need to affirm life in the face of uncertainty. They broke apart reluctantly when a knock at the door announced the return of Counselor Neth Varen. The tribunal has reached a decision, he informed them. They're reconvening now. As they prepared to wake Amira, Lidria's father added, whatever the outcome, know that Dreth and Nylara will face justice for their actions. The mining accident investigation has already been reopened. Back in the tribunal chamber, now mostly empty save for the key participants, the chief judge delivered their ruling. After careful consideration of all evidence and testimony, this tribunal finds that the child Amira was indeed abandoned by her legal guardian, Nylara Teth, who has demonstrated gross negligence and cruelty. Furthermore, the human Eli Voss acted with appropriate compassion in providing emergency shelter to an endangered minor. Eli squeezed Amira's hand as the judge continued. Regarding the petition for guardianship, while we acknowledge the unusual nature of this request, we also recognize that rigid adherence to tradition must not supersede the welfare of a child. Therefore, we grant temporary guardianship to Eli Voss, with quarterly reviews to ensure the child's needs are being met. A weight lifted from Eli's chest as Amira threw her arms around his waist in joy. Additionally, the judge concluded, in light of this case, the tribunal recommends a comprehensive review of the interspecies guardianship code to be overseen by Deputy Director Neth Varen, whose advocacy in this matter has been noted. As they exited the chamber, Lidria pulled Alea aside, her expression serious despite their victory. Temporary guardianship is just the beginning, she warned. There will be challenges ahead. Dreth has allies who won't take his downfall lightly. We'll face them together, Eli said, his gaze taking in both Lydria and Amira. All of us. The look that passed between them held the promise of more nights like the one they'd shared, passionate, tender explorations of their differences and similarities, but also something deeper. A future neither had dared imagine until now. Together, Lydria agreed, her silver eyes shining with possibilities. 1 year later, the settlement of Viridia looked much the same from a distance. The gleaming spires of the administrative center, the bustling market district, the industrial sector where the mines operated day and night. But for those who lived there, everything had changed. Eli stood in the doorway of what had once been his humble dwelling, now expanded and renovated almost beyond recognition. The main room was filled with a curious mix of human and alien furnishings. Practical mining tools hung beside delicate alien artifacts, and colorful children's drawings adorned walls once bare and utilitarian. Amira, we're going to be late, he called, adjusting the formal human suit that still felt strange after a lifetime in mining coveralls. A blur of blue skin and flowing fabric rushed past him. I'm ready, Amira announced, twirling to show off her new dress. A vibrant blue that matched her skin, rather than hiding it, embroidered with silver patterns that caught the light. You look beautiful, Eli said, his chest tightening with pride. Do you think Lydria will like it? Amira asked, smoothing the fabric anxiously. She'll love it, he assured her, just like she loves you. The past year had been a journey none of them could have imagined. After the tribunal's ruling, Eli had expected resistance from the alien community. Instead, their story had captured the public imagination. The human miner who risked everything for an abandoned alien child, the high-ranking official who defied tradition to help them, the corrupt counselor brought down by a little girl's testimony. It was the stuff of legends. Dreth and Nylara had been convicted of conspiracy in the mine accident that killed Amira's father, along with numerous corruption charges. The investigation had exposed unsafe conditions throughout the mining sector, leading to reforms that benefited human workers and alien supervisors alike. Lydria's proposed revisions to the Interspecies Guardianship Code had passed with surprising support, and temporary arrangements like Eli's guardianship of Amira became permanent legal options. The quarterly reviews had confirmed what everyone already knew. Amira was thriving in her new home, but the most unexpected development had been the relationship between Eli and Lydria. What began as an unlikely alliance had blossomed into something neither culture had quite seen before, a genuine partnership that bridged their worlds. Their first night together had been just the beginning. Each subsequent encounter had deepened their connection, teaching them both that physical differences mattered far less than the emotions they shared. Lydria's initial fascination with human passion had evolved into a deeper appreciation for the way Eli approached everything in life, with full-hearted commitment and unwavering integrity. For Eli, Lydria's measured thoughtfulness balanced his more impulsive nature, while her willingness to challenge tradition for the sake of justice matched his own core values. Their nights together became a dance of discovery, her cool lavender skin against his sun-weathered warmth, her controlled elegance yielding to his earthy intensity. Are you daydreaming about Lydria again? Amira asked, interrupting his thoughts with the directness only a child could manage. Your face gets all mushy when you think about her. Eli laughed, ruffling her silky hair. Come on, smarty pants. The hover car is waiting. They traveled to the administrative center, now a familiar journey. Lydria met them at the entrance, resplendent in formal attire that combined traditional alien styling with subtle nods to human fashion. The look they exchanged held the heat of their private moments together, tempered by the public setting. Nervous? She asked, taking Eli's hand. Terrified, he admitted. Your people take ceremonies very seriously. So do yours, she countered with a smile, which is why today will honor both traditions. They entered the grand hall where the bonding ceremony would take place, the first officially recognized union between a human and an alien in the settlement's history. The room was packed with an unprecedented mix of species, Lydria's extensive family and political connections, Eli's fellow miners and human friends, and dozens of curious onlookers drawn by the historic nature of the event. Counselor Nethvarin approached, his formal robes marking his role as ceremony officiant. "Are you prepared?" he asked Eli. "As I'll ever be," Eli replied honestly. The elder alien's expression softened. "When Lydria first told me about you, I thought she'd lost her mind. A human minor. But I've watched you this past year. Your dedication to Amira, your support of Lydia's work, your willingness to learn our ways while teaching us yours. You've shown us all what humanity truly offers the galaxy." The ceremony itself was a carefully choreographed blend of traditions. They exchanged vows in both languages, performed the solemn alien ritual of essence sharing alongside the human custom of ring exchange, and completed both the dignified alien bonding dance and the more exuberant human first dance as a married couple. When it came time for Amira's part in the ceremony, she stepped forward with surprising confidence. According to the new provisions in the Interspecies Family Code, her formal adoption would be the final component of their union. "Do you choose to join this family bond?" Counselor Nethvarin asked her. "I do," Amira said clearly, her ocean-colored eyes bright with happiness. "They found me when I was alone and made me belong." As the ceremony concluded, Eli, Lydria, and Amira stood together, officially recognized as a family unit under both human and alien law. The applause that filled the hall represented more than approval of their union. It was acknowledgement of a new possibility for their communities. At the celebration afterward, Eli found a moment alone with his new wife, pulling her into a secluded alcove for a kiss that promised much more for later. "Happy?" he asked when they finally broke apart. "Beyond words," Lydria replied, her silver eyes shining, "though I'm still not sure I understand the human custom of smashing cake into each other's faces." Eli laughed. "Cultural differences? Just wait until you experience a human honeymoon." Her expression turned sultry. "I've been researching human honeymoon traditions extensively. I believe I'm adequately prepared." The heat in her voice sent a familiar thrill through him, a promise of the night to come when they would once again bridge their differences with passion and tenderness. Their private moment was interrupted by Amira, who found them with the unerring instinct of a child. "Everyone's looking for you," she announced, "and Grandfather says it's time for the announcement." They returned to the main hall where Counselor Nethvarin waited to address the gathering. "Today we celebrate not just the union of two individuals, but a new chapter in our settlement's history," he began. "The Interspecies Cultural Exchange Program, championed by my daughter and supported by both human and alien communities, has been officially approved." Cheers erupted, loudest from the mixed group of human miners and alien administrators who had worked together on the proposal. "Furthermore," the counselor continued, "in recognition of his contributions to mine safety reforms and interspecies relations, Eli Voss has been appointed as the program's first human co-director, alongside Deputy Director Nethvarin." Eli stood in stunned silence as congratulations poured in. From abandoned child and destitute miner to respected community leader and cross-cultural pioneer, it was a journey neither he nor Lydria could have imagined when they first met. Later that night, after the celebrations had ended and Amira was asleep in her room, Eli and Lydria stood on the balcony of their new home, looking out over the settlement that had transformed from a place of division to one of possibility. "Do you ever think about that day on the road?" Lydria asked, nestled against his side. "How different everything might have been if you'd chosen another path home from the mines." Eli considered this, remembering the dusty little blue girl clutching her worn toy. "I think some things are meant to be," he said finally, "not in a mystical way, but in the sense that when good people choose to do the right thing, it creates a ripple effect." "Very philosophical for a human miner," Lydria teased, her fingers tracing patterns on his chest in a way that made his breath catch. "I've been hanging around a certain alien intellectual too much," he replied, pulling her closer. "She's a terrible influence." "Terrible, am I?" Lydria's voice dropped to a seductive whisper. "Perhaps I should demonstrate just how terrible I can be." As they moved toward their bedroom, Lai reflected that the greatest adventure wasn't finding an abandoned alien child or fighting corrupt officials or even bridging two cultures. It was the daily choice to love across boundaries, to build something new together, to create family from the broken pieces life had given them. In a settlement where blue skin had once been considered unlucky, a little blue girl now slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that she was cherished. And in a galaxy where humans and aliens had regarded each other with suspicion, a human man and an alien woman had found in each other not just passion but partnership, not just difference but strength. It wasn't perfect. There would always be challenges, prejudices to overcome, new boundaries to navigate. But as Eli closed the bedroom door behind them, he knew with absolute certainty that whatever came next, they would face it together. The unlikely family that began with a little humanoid alien girl Orphan left on the roadside, a poor but big-hearted human man, and the extraordinary woman who helped them become something greater than the sum of their parts.